Okay, making fun of Destiny is really fun, so let's do that. Norman Finkelstein was having an interview. This was posted like just now, and he made fun of Destiny, so it's funny to do it again.
Becoming a pariah state. I wanted to actually ask you about the recent statement made by Yoav Golan, who is the Israel Democratic Party.
Only problem: inferior cultures, communist, and Muslims. Nazi gold. Huh? Are you trying to be pro-Nazi? You're too incoherent. What country are you from? Con et. Oh, man. Huh. I'm trying to figure out what country you could be, because you're not American.
Leader. He had some interesting statements that he made on Tuesday on Israeli public radio. And Yair Golan is not just Israel's Democratic Party leader. He's also a reserve major general in the IDF and, of course, a former soldier and commander.
Israel is on its way to becoming a pariah state among nations, like South Africa was, if we don't return to acting like a sane country. And a sane country does not wage war against civilians, does not kill babies as a hobby, and does not give itself the aim of expelling populations.
What are your thoughts on this statement, this admission from an Israeli that the IDF kills children?
Well, my first reaction is a very idiosyncratic one. I was hoping somebody would pull that clip and juxtapose it next to that thing called Destiny and Benny Morris when I was in the debate with them.
For a historian, I don't want to understand Israeli society. If you want to know the truth, I don't want to. I don't want to get inside their heads.
That's the problem.
90% of
a good historian tries to get into the heads of the very protagonists.
There's a limit. When 90% of Israelis think that Israel's using enough or too little force in Gaza, I don't want to get inside that head. 40% think that Israel is using insufficient force in Gaza. I don't want to get inside that head. I don't want to get inside the head of people who think they're using insufficient force against the population, half of which is children. I don't want to get inside that head.
No, you don't know Israeli pilots. They believe that they are killing Hamasniks. They're given certain objectives, and that's what they attack.
Every time they target a kid, I'm sure they believe it's Hamas.
And the issue came up of whether Israel kills children. And they laughed off the whole idea, said it's totally crazy. And I began to give examples. And each example they sought to refute. And then I gave what seemed to me the most compelling example, which was the March 2018 March of Return in Gaza. Great March of Return, it was called. The UN report, which was very thorough, ran to 250 pages, single-spaced. It said that Israel was targeting children, targeting journalists, targeting medics, targeting disabled people. When it didn't outright kill them, it was targeting them at the kneecap to give them life-changing injuries.
Disabilities, yeah.
And all of it was exhaustively documented.
He didn't call him a brilliant idiot. He called him like, fuck, what was the meme? Fuck, what was the meme? Fantastic moron. Thank you. He would never use the word brilliant.
And that thing called Destiny, he was very agitated at the claim. Benny Morris tried to distance himself, the Israeli historian. He tried to distance himself from what the March 2018, but they were both very adamant. So there was a certain relief, you might call it, on my part, when the Israeli official or opposition party official, he said, but everybody knows Israel targets the children. You might recall that Pharaoh Sidwa, the doctor who was in Gaza, he and I think it was something like 60, you can correct me, 60 other doctors and medical personnel, they provided enough evidence to convince the New York Times that children were being targeted in the head and in the chest. And then there was an uproar when the Times published that. And then the Times had no choice. It said, look, we looked at the x-rays. We looked at the x-rays. We couldn't reach another conclusion. So obviously it strengthens the case when this person says it, but it's nothing new under the sun. What happened in Gaza since October 2023, there's nothing new in what it's doing. What's different is the quantity. And the cliche is at some point, quantity turns into quality. So you might murder an individual, but when it becomes 100 individuals, the murder becomes a massacre. And if the 100 individuals turns into 1,000 individuals, it becomes a crime against humanity. And if the 1,000 individuals turns into 1,000,000, it becomes a genocide. So at some point, quantity turns into something qualitatively different. But there's nothing new in the
I mean, like, this is the most basic part of this dispute, is that a lot of the people who are persuaded by Ethan Klein or Destiny, they just simply don't. This is too complicated of a thought for them. And like, one of the things is, in reality, there are a lot of people who do not have healthy brains or develop. Let's just be honest. It's time for us to take a minute of honesty for a second. I was very lucky in my life. My parents loved me. They read to me. They took me to libraries and bookstores. They encouraged me academically. They cared about how I performed academically. I read books voraciously my entire childhood. I learned, I got higher education. I got higher education. I got a Juris Doctorate. I have an undergraduate degree. I completed my studies, and I kept learning throughout life. I studied policy papers and wrote policy memorandums and consulted on legislation and worked to develop policy positions for policy. So studying law, studying these things, getting involved intellectually, I am somebody who is just qualitatively different than the vast majority of people when it comes to politics. Doesn't mean I'm superior. It just means I've spent the time. I've done the reading. I've done the homework, right? And there's a lot of people who have never read a book. I read my first book when I was like literally 4. I read my first novel actual adult novel when I was like 6. Okay? I've always been precocious. I've always been academically gifted. All right? The idea that I can make it to 30 something without reading a fucking book is insane. I was cleaning out couch cushions to get money to buy books when I was a kid. And not like baby cook books like, Goosebumps, which I liked. I'm not saying I never read any Goosebumps. I'm talking about real adult fiction, not young adult fiction, not Green Eggs and Ham, actual books for adults. And it's okay. That doesn't make me cool or anything. It's just the way I was precocious, probably a symptom of autism, quite frankly. But when we talk like this, like when we use words, when I choose to describe something, or I use a word, or I use a concept, I understand it. And I feel like what Finkelnstein just did to explain the difference between a murder and a massacre and a crime against humanity and a genocide is fundamentally a logic chain that is too complicated for a lot of Destiny's fans. They are actually stupid people, like legitimately stupid people. I think we kind of skip over that in our political communication. I think the worst part of politics is a lot of politics discourse is full of people like me who read books as children and continue to read books. You're weird. You're a weird guy. Many people have only written a couple books their entire life. Okay? And there's not enough politics that is accessible. And that's why I like Bernie Sanders' campaign so much, because it was accessible without being paternalistic. It was accessible without looking down or condescending to people. And it was effective. It was strong. It was policy that was good. People call it populist, but it was populist not because the ideas couldn't stand up to scrutiny. It's populist because it rejects the current elites who will not implement the best founded academically policies because they are corrupted in favor of elite interest. Bernie Sanders populism is policies that help the people, for the people, against the interest of the elites who have betrayed us. Where right-wing populism is anti-intellectualism. It is it's dogmatic. It is demagoguery. That is the right populism. It is not policy that actually helps the people or checks elites, but rather it uses the prejudices and the cognitive errors to manipulate the masses and attack learning itself. I'm 52 and never read a book, not proud of it. I've met here, by the way, if reading text is hard for you, it doesn't mean you're stupid. There are other ways of learning, right? This is what true intelligence is. True intelligence is self-knowledge and maximizing what you have. So say you have a hard time focusing on reading a book. There are audiobooks. There are discussions about books or guided readings of books where like a professor will sit down with you and go through the chapters and discuss them, you know, and break it down for you. Like, you don't always have to do things on your own. In fact, there are all sorts of structures and guides. There can be summaries to help you get through it. There could be annotated versions. There's all sorts of strategies that you can get through. It's a matter of recognizing what is good for me and then executing that. You know, a lot of writers dictate, right? Like, a lot of writers, they sit down on a blank page and they just talk at it and they dictate stuff. And then they go back and edit, right? And then they go back and write because writing off the blank page is hard. A lot of lawyers dictate. A lot of doctors dictate because the blank page is hard for them, but they figured out an alternative way to get started and then go back. How could I keep my attention even after the initial enthusiasm? This is where my ADHD brain I can't help you, because for me, I just read the whole thing in one sitting, or I read it until I fall asleep. Like, it is what it is. Open Dyslexic is a font that helps those with dyslexia parse text a little easier. Oh, that's interesting.
Israeli tactics, that to me is, for anybody who studied it, nothing new under the sun. Or I should say nothing new under the Israeli sun.
Just the newsworthiness of it is that a opposition party leader is admitting it.
Yeah, and it was newsworthy that he used the word as a hobby,
right? As
in, not only do they not experience any remorse, but what's a hobby?
Fun.
Listen up, guys. A hobby is something you do for fun.
Right.
And that's exactly true. That's Israel. That's why, in my opinion, I'll give you just a brief preview, and you can do with it as you like. On June 9th, I will be in a public presentation with Dr. Cornel West and the former executive director of the ACLU. Her name is Nadine Strassen, a very impressive woman by any reckoning, a very impressive woman. And I will ask the question in good faith, not as a provocation. I will ask the question. The title of the event is Cancel Culture, Freedom of Speech in Gaza. And we're going to talk or focus, I hope, on the events on the college campuses and how they bear on the issue of freedom of speech. Now, if you read the Harvard reports on this alleged anti-Semitism at Harvard and so forth, everyone talks about the need for inclusion and what's called pluralism, which is, you know, in Rodney King's famous line, can't we all get along? And the job of a college, they say the job of a college is people from diverse backgrounds, diverse opinions, contrary opinions, strongly felt opinions. Can't we all get along? Can't we be inclusive? Can't we cultivate a culture of pluralism? And as a general directive, that sounds to me right. But I do think since the Harvard report and others have focused on the Israeli Jewish students who feel shunned and are being shunned, they don't only feel it, it's a fact, they're being shunned. My view is the default setting is anybody coming out of Gaza is a war criminal. The default setting is not innocent until proven guilty. You are a participant. You are a cog in the machine of genocide. And that being the case, do we have a responsibility to make that student feel inclusive? Does everybody have a responsibility to be inclusive of that person? I have to say, I have very mixed feelings about that. If one of those persons who served in Gaza came to me during office hours, I would have very mixed feelings.
I would have one feeling. If I met someone who served in Gaza, I would have one feeling and one feeling only. There would be no mixed. Hippo smile if you agree. How do I feel about your view count declining now that you've become a drama stream mentioning Ethan every day? Asanabi Harvard PhD on CNN. Finkelnstein dunks on Destiny again. Poll. Democratic voters prefer populism to abundance. Elon fired by Trump. Where's Ethan? Where's Ethan? I don't see no Ethan Klein. Also, it is 1 hour into the stream. I want to help you. I don't know where you people get your like information from, but I have never been more successful in my career than I am now. Like, this is how it works. You see these here's how these streams work. Just go to the streams. This is how they work. Here it is. Okay, I started the stream at 12:15, so 3:15 would be 1 hour in. 3,000. That's just how it goes. That's how it goes. Literally, that's how it goes. This is normal. This is how it goes. I'm at 3,000 yesterday from an hour in. I'm an hour in, and it's, by the way, it's earlier in the day too. So this is actually better. The reason why I answer those people is because it's like, bro, it is 8 a.m. and I have 3,000 people here. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? To talk about far left politics at 8 a.m. I have 3,000 people here. Like, god damn, dude. I honestly, can I say my haters are my biggest fans? Can I just say that? Like, my haters are my biggest fans, and I want to thank you. It's like actually insane. They're like, I expect your far left stream to have like hundreds of thousands of people watching it at 8 a.m. I can't believe how much you've fallen off. Why don't you compare yourself to like the biggest mainstream corporate sponsored streamers who never talk about controversial topics from a position that is suppressed by the American government? How come you can't compare to? And by the way, I do. That's the thing that's funny. I do compare to those people. That's the thing that's insane. Like that's the thing that's actually crazy. I have more viewers than those people. What does abundance mean in this case? There is a movement by the neoliberals to rebrand neoliberalism abundance, and all of their ideas were tested in a poll against populist stuff, and populism was massively more popular. Anyway, let's finish the Destiny thing and then we'll talk about it.
About trying to make
By the way, is there even really anything more to say about Ethan Klein? Like, he got made fun of by one of the most up-and-coming streamers on Twitch and creators on TikTok. Like, no one gives a shit about him. His supporters are literal Nazis and genocidal maniacs. His position is getting absolutely disproven as we speak, as Israeli prime ministers come out and say they're committing war crimes and crime against humanity. Like, former Israeli prime ministers are saying they're committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. The Europeans are starting to call them genocidal. I've just been proven completely right and vindicated completely with my position. Like, what are you even talking about? What are you talking about? Like, what are you even on?
or her feel inclusive.
Did you see the paraglider that got sucked up to 8,000 meters in China? That could happen if you went on to a thermal. Why didn't he fly out of the thermal? I'm a glider pilot, so I've ridden thermals before. I would be surprised for a paraglider to get pushed that high, but pretty cold up there. You would be dead. You would be super dead. Did he die? Oh, he rode a thunder. Oh no. Oh no, he's dead, isn't he? He lived? How? Is there video or is he just making it up? Mike, did you watch the season finale of The Rehearsal? Okay, I'm learning about Thunderhead Guy, but my answer to Rehearsal is Nathan Fielder is such an artist that it literally makes me feel a certain type of way that I don't like. And I'm not saying that I'm having bad feelings. The point, that's actually not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm laughing the entire time, but it's like you are revealing your own flaws by laughing at it. Do you know what I mean? Like, to find it funny is like kind of showing that you're fucked up. Oh no. How did he not die? Was he from like a mountainous region? Like, what the fuck? I mean, I guess he could have just passed out and then woke back up, right? I mean, that's like, I don't know, dude. I don't find that to be reliable enough.
If the genocide is a national project,
okay, let's go back to the serious shit.
Then everybody has
to... got distracted by the person trying to say I'm falling off. Look, I just like King Gothalion, one of the original Twitch streamers. 2K, 39 DAF, 2.IK, S-Fan, doing a joint stream. I'm gonna pass him any second now. It's like at a certain point, like, what are you even talking about? What are you talking about? How is your brain like that? It blows my mind. Like, you came in here to try to say that I'm falling off, and it's like, what are you talking about? What are you on?
Bear his or her share of culpability for participation in that project. So I have very mixed feelings about the cool now. And if you look at, there were two reports issued by Harvard, one a task force on anti-Semitism and another a task force on anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim attacks. But one thing the two reports had in common is at the end, they talked about the need for inclusion and the need for pluralism and the need for figuring out how we can all get along. Well, dare I say, I don't want to get along with a genocidal murderer. I really don't. For me, it's a complete betrayal of my family history, my legacy. If most of the Germans who served during World War II, they got off for a very simple reason. That too was a national project. And if you were to prosecute everybody, you'd have a whole country in jail. So they had to be very selective in who they prosecuted. You take the worst guard in the camp in Majdanek, where my mother was there. Her name was Brigida. She was, by reputation, the worst. Everybody was terrified of her. So she went through the trial in Majdanek. It was the charge. It was a trial of the guards from Majdanek. It was held in Dusseldorf in the late 1970s. And my mother testified at the trial. And the testimony.
By the way, chat, why did it take to the 70s to prosecute these people? Because originally, if you cared about the Holocaust, you were considered to be a communist sympathizer. All the former Nazis ran to the U.S. and U.S. lines so that they could immediately engage in anti-communism. So after FDR died, the idea of any kind of rapprochement between the East and the West ended with FDR, right? And it was left, we had Dulles brothers and we had Truman and we had Churchill, virulent anti-communists. And so the Nazis immediately went into the West German government and NATO. And so from the 40s till the 70s, if you were like the Holocaust was some like world historic crime, you were either Jewish or you were a socialist. I mean, the Soviet Union liberated all but, I would say, 4 of the camps and all of the death camps. Why? Because they were all in Poland. Or, you know what I mean? Like almost all the death camps were in Poland or in non-German territory. There were old concentration camps. The oldest concentration camps were in Germany, but those were not typically death camps or extermination camps. Those were camps that were largely for, guess who? Communists and political dissidents and queers and stuff like that. Like the extermination camps were oftentimes, they were all liberated by the Soviets. The Holocaust was ended by the Soviet Union, not the Allies. The Soviet Union ended the Holocaust. And so there was, you know, after Israel geopolitically became a cat's paw for the West, it became something that was there to counterbalance pan-Arab nationalism, which was seen as a threat by the West. Pan-Arab nationalism being secular and left-wing and likely to align with the Soviet bloc. So in order to counter pan-Arab nationalism, in order to counter secular nationalist movements within the Arab world, Israel and Islamism were supported by the US and the West. And that's when, oh yeah, the Holocaust is terrible. Israel is the home of the Jews they are a uniquely oppressed people. That's when that narrative started. There was, you know, and when Israel first founded, you know, a lot of the people who went to Israel claimed to be left-wing Jews, right? There was liberal Zionists who claim, or binationalists as they were called. So there was this kind of like smokescreen of naivete that there would be some sort of like settlement where the indigenous population would learn to live with the Jewish immigrant. All of that is horseshit. It was fake for the beginning. The project was always a settler colonial Zionist exterminationist project. But there was at least a smokescreen and belief and possibility of that.